Good morning and happy Friday. We did it. We made it
Woo!
through the week. Are you excited about that?
Yeah. It's hard to believe another moment of being here for this week. Yeah, it's another week has gone by.
So, I gotta tell you guys, I had this random thought that just ran through my head thinking about it was the best part of your week. And I think my favorite part was a little conversation we had yesterday, Joe.
Really? Why don't you share? Set it up.
Oh my goodness, you guys are getting used to the fact that Joe is the brainiac. I can't see you very well, Joe.
Yeah. I'm coming in. I'm coming in. Go.
Yeah. So he's talking about somebody's education seminar that he is participating in, and he said it was salient, and I went, "Ooh, salient." You want to finish it?
Yeah. Well, we were talking more about being at the doctor and being salient. Uh, I don't remember what exactly now. It's out of context. But then I said, I've got at least my mind is clear and I can speak well and my capability. My capability.
His capabilities
to speak well.
So, just thinking about those little brain cells dying.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have those little blurps of speech that toss us off center. Anyway, Joe is just like the thinker dude, and we like to have fun together. But I think it's really cool that you're allowing us to get inside your brain a little bit, find out what you're thinking. I come home and he's got like these whiteboards, and he'll put them up, and it's his thoughts for the day. So it's kind of fun. So I thought maybe you could share those thoughts with us. Some of them.
If you have a question, please put a question in. We love
goodness.
questions. We love comments. It helps us to have a lot more energy. We're a lot more engaged. Not that we aren't engaged, but we're more engaged. It's exactly this topic that brings up this point of beating death at its own game. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at what death is. Death is the going away of something. And life is sitting at the potentiality of something. It's like, wow, those are great definitions, Joe. Let's get specific.
This is what I come home to, you guys.
It's so life is full of something, and we're sitting every moment. So, boop, boop, boop. Just before that boop, that last moment, dead. The next one is starting up, and it has its full potential. But let's look at the past, at that moment that we just experienced. What did it hold for us? How did we really feel about that last moment? Did we live into everything that it could have been? We have to evaluate that. So, hi, Andrea.
Good morning, Andrea.
Morning. Woo! Look at that.
Stop. Is that driving you guys crazy? It's driving me crazy. All that movement is just like static. I don't know
Let's
what
go
the deal
slow.
is.
Anyways, so death. Think about a tree. You got plenty of those. Perhaps you don't have a tree if you're in the desert, but think about a cactus and the needles that fall off. Think about this moment. Think about the fact that for everything that dies, there's a remnant. So you think about a leaf, going through its various changes from healthy and full or from the bud and growing to be its full extension and then passing away. So our moments pass away, but there's a remnant, and sometimes that remnant flies across the driveway. It gets captured at the door. It just sticks there as a reminder that something died and it's there and we got to take care of it. Well, in our life, that's the same thing. We go, and that last moment, it might have been a bad moment. It might have been a struggle. It might have been feeling like over Christmas, I was feeling a loss Even though it was 5 or 7 years after my parents had passed away, it really just came to me, and I felt this loss. And it's like, wow, isn't it interesting that this comes up at this moment? Well, Christmas was a big holiday for us at the time together as family, and so, but that remnant is sticking with me. And so, does it carry over into the next remnant? See, I didn't even get dressed. You didn't even tell me about getting dressed this morning. My remnant from last moment is having blanked out. Jeez. Okay, so getting back to the story, what do we carry into the next minute? So, is it this all that it can be? Are we looking at our life to what it all can be, or do we feel this emptiness, or do we feel lost, or do we feel seeing that remnant in our life of something that has come and gone, and we're still carrying it along? Sometimes it's baggage, sometimes it's a belief, sometimes it's a habit that no longer serves us, and we carry it into the next. So beating death at its own game comes down to a couple things. What are we imagining? What are we imagining about the next minute? What are we imagining about where we are going? So if I look at my planner today, what am I doing to satisfy reaching one of my dreams? Perhaps it's in my spiritual life to grow that, or into my primary love relationships.
Oh, he's thinking about me.
Yeah.
Yay.
What am I doing today to make sure our relationship continues to grow? Reaches that dream that I have for it, or that dream we have for it. What's our personal and professional development? What am I doing into it? Well, we're starting today with our mentor, with this broader empowerment living community, the start of Think and Grow Rich. It's study number 5. I gotta really slow down my hands. Number 5. So we've gone through the study with Paul and Roddy 5 times. This is the 5th time, and it's going to be from a different filter, and it's going to lead us into thinking about the principles of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill in terms of forgiveness and tithing and love, missing chapters that Paul feels are from the book. Now, you might say, what does love have to do with richness? Well, it does have a lot, but it's not richness only about financial. It's about these 5 dimensions that I'm talking about, including your health of your body temple, of how well you take care of yourself. And it's also dealing with your freedom and flow of time, money. So what are you carrying into this next moment, into those 5 dimensions? Maybe you have a goal, maybe you don't. Maybe you're focused on only one. That's okay. But what does that next moment look like? How full can it be? And you're sitting there in this precipice. There's this precipice between death of the last moment and the potential birth of this moment of what it can be. And so I'm reminded, I was digging up my Wallace Wattles Science of Getting Rich, but it's another thought. It's another great master out there, enlightened. I'll talk about Troward, I'll talk about Wattles and Hill and others, but there are 3 motives for which we live. We live for the body, we live for the mind, and we live for the soul. And if you think about all those, fully expressing, life can only fully express and expand. And sometimes we intentionally stay in the past. We're not looking forward. Mm-hmm. And as such, if we don't live forward, everything else is moving forward, and we're saying, oh, wait a minute, I want to take a break here, I want to sit on the bench. Nothing wrong with benches.
Well,
but there's just one thing here that I really want to talk about. No, it's okay. Every desire is the effort of an unexpressed possibility to come into action. So desire is important. What do we desire for this next moment? And then are we suggesting it to our mind, to ourselves, by verbally, by sharing it with others? Are we carrying it forward to be something fantastic and working towards our goal? Now, I'll pause there for station identification. This is a presentation of the Crayon Leadership
Oh,
Lisa
goodness
Dutkiewicz,
gracious.
coach for Mindset Success. Now back to our story.
Joe, thank you for your thoughts. A little glimpse for you in our conversations in the evening. They get pretty deep. I get to listen, and then eventually I get to speak a
Oh,
little
you
bit.
get to speak a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. But
Okay.
when you were talking, what it was reminding me of is we went to see our health provider, and she's just awesome. I just love her.
Yeah.
But
Shout out to Tammy.
hey, Tammy. But what I found fascinating this time is our discussion about ACEs, which is adverse childhood events. And she was sharing with us how most of us have at least one childhood event that was adverse. And they're talking about all kinds of different things in these events, everything from big losses to abuse to
Yeah, there's an online assessment to figure out where you're at, and but it was interesting because she mentioned, the majority of people have one.
at least
Well, excuse me,
yeah.
a small percentage that have only one, and a large majority, almost like the rest of people, have had at least one. So that more than one adverse childhood event. I'm going. Lisa and I were talking about that and saying, we're thinking back and saying, what does that look like? And we'll talk on future shows or on her weekly, daily show. More, you get more insight. Obviously, we love to share the things we're going through, and sometimes we can point to the things in our past that we've stopped or we've overcome because we're now aware of this.
Well, the body is, to your
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
The body, we don't have to do anything about these childhood events, but our mind naturally puts up this defense system. So the way we're reacting to things now as adults tends to go all the way back to our childhood and what we learned to do as a response back then. So giving birth to these new ideas and this new development in our life isn't always the easiest for us to do because we have to almost retrain our brain to do it.
So, hi, Mandy. Hi,
Hey, good
welcome.
morning,
Hello, everyone
Mandy.
that's coming through. Just we're talking about this, what death, how to beat death at its game, and so here's the point. You have to go back and say what's coming forward. So we were talking about this adverse childhood event, and I'm looking back when I was younger. I lived on a block that had a couple other kids my age, but they didn't want to play with me. And of course, then my parents were talking into it and saying, "Oh, don't play with them. They're the wrong type of kids to hang out with." And it's like, what? We're kids, but don't go out. We live 5 houses off of a major highway, and so don't go down there because you could get hit. So there was a lot of voices of solitude, of isolation, and that's where I think, as Lisa and I were talking about it yesterday, that's where some of this uh, desire or protectionism of isolation came about, because I can't hurt myself. Well, I can. I found out more, and I can hurt myself by being isolated, by stepping back and saying, no one wants to play with Jewel.
But I think I've seen that play out too for you as you have held yourself back from new experiences, the fear of going out and doing things that you don't know about.
Yeah, Andrea talks about retraining the brain, especially with trauma. So up close about that.
I do.
Right. So it's about, how do we look at this next moment? This is what the point today is. How do we look about that next moment? Well, we have to first of all, we have to imagine a better moment. And that might be sometimes hard. When I was down in Guatemala, people were not, living within the daily life, repeating the same moment over and over again. We have 60,000 thoughts, and most of those are carried over from the previous day. Well, I just saw a reminder. We make 30,000 choices a day. That is 30,000 choices. Wow. So how many of those are carried the same thing from day to day? And so we can't, if we're bringing all that forward, we can't let the next moment win because we're bringing death with us, and death wants us to hold on to that remnant.
Well, it's simple things, simple things like, am I going to choose to be happy? Am I going to choose to drag that baggage with me from those past experiences, whatever it might be, yesterday's experience or forever ago?
Or all those clothes through the airport that you're carrying with you?
The clothes that, I guess that's a choice.
That's baggage, right?
It is that. So as you're thinking about, what's going on in your life, discovering more about who you are, that's like fascinating to me when I get to see more about who I have become as a person and how I got there, and taking a look at who I want to be,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that my choice of who I want to be is actually a choice. I don't have to be placed in a box and stuck there by this circumstantial evidence. It's a perspective reality. So is it a truth? I think that is the big thing for me. I trace some of my my thoughts all the way back. It was so cool. I traced it all the way back until I was 3 years old, when my sisters were born, and I had a couple of discussions with some people in the psychology field, and tracing that back to, my sisters are twins, so I was an only child for 3 years. And all of a sudden, I have twin sisters. So how does a person
that's
adjust?
Interesting. That's interesting. We're in the same position. We're the firstborn,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we get isolation in a way, right?
Yeah.
Because they get all the attention. And in my case, it didn't help much that my sister wanted, when she was barely even old enough to stand upright, and verbalize she wants to sell me for a pony and a puppy. And then she's trying to give me a haircut with scissors, So,
I just try to imagine you getting a haircut.
Yeah, well, I had my hair was a little longer then, not much.
Well, it was also the cute factor. She had the cute factor, and she's a little baby.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's gonna win over a pony and puppy over me, But they said no, you can't trade them.
But as I was talking about, tracing those roots all the way back.
By the way, love you, Marion.
Oh, Andrea's a firstborn too. Yay, go firstborn.
Nothing wrong with being secondborn.
No.
Oh,
we all have our strengths here.
Yeah.
But they talked about it actually turning into like an abandonment issue.
Yeah.
Which, golly, that sounds like a strong term to me. But I suppose so, And how do you deal with that? How do you become resilient? It's through all your choices.
Yeah.
And, I think for all of us, Andrea, I've seen it in you, and I see it in you, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
But for all of us, especially as the firstborn, we have that.
In most cases.
Well, I suppose so. In most cases.
Well, in most cases, I'm saying there's some people out there that may not agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. But what I think happens is, we develop this spirit of resiliency.
Yes.
And we're used to being independent. We know that we can be leaders. We know that we can have those independent thoughts and just rise to challenges and be strong through things.
Yeah. So you think about back, hundreds of years ago, when there were a few, kingdoms, little feudal lands, whatever. If you remember your history lesson, the firstborn was the one that would inherit the land,
mm-hmm.
right? So they worked to be that leader, and the second would have a role, to be something different. Each were
unless the second one decides to trick them.
Oh, take away from the first, but. By the time you got the third and fourth, or fifth or sixth, those roles were, when you get to third, and especially in in a Christian land, uh, that person would go on to be a preacher, or would be somebody that would be ministering to the faith because they didn't need them at home.
Well, that sounds harsh.
Well, they were kicked out because the first had the land and the second tended to something else.
Sure.
That but the
It makes
third
sense.
was like a gift. Here's our tithing of our third child.
Well, I guess when you stop and think about it, it all makes sense. I just hadn't. I think, but the first person that came to mind was David.
Yeah.
He was the youngest. He was out in the fields. Yeah. What eventually happens to David? He ends up becoming
the least become
the king.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it can happen, but it was we can talk more about that. But let's just kind of like close this up because we have people hanging on, and I love it. Thank you. But we should land this topic. Beat death at its own game. We're thinking about if you think about Star Wars too. The Death Star was coming into Alderaan to blow it up. Well, first there was reaction, and sometimes that's what we end up in our life. It's reacting. But we need to think about how do we respond effectively? Well, we can think about a better moment and then build that imagination into something that, there's many options. And then we focus in on desire and decision. So decision is the cutaway of all the options. The one we're going to focus in on. We're going to say all the rest can, be put to the side. This is the one we're going to go with. And that's what we can do into this next moment is to think, okay, we're going to make a decision and have a desire, and imagination is controlling what we say to our mind then, because we want that, we focus in on that, and then our mind then carries out, our whole body carries out to live into those 5 dimensions, into the things we want, to focus all our energy into accomplishing that. And if we do that and hold off of, pull away from the beliefs and habits that we're carrying along that don't serve us anymore.
Okay.
We're going to have life.
Yeah.
We're going to give this next moment the greatest possible life expression and expansion that we can.
So this is my short view of it. we realize we have a choice.
Yes.
We make a decision. We visualize what that decision looks like, and then we take action.
Yeah.
How's that for the short version?
Yeah.
So this Joe's handing me this book that disappears.
Yeah. Hang on. I built this in. Look. Whoa. There we go.
Oh my goodness, Joe. You're so funny. Blueprint for Success is coming up February 22nd. I am so excited because I am not kidding you guys. This is a life-changing workshop. So
and we can look at that moment and get ready for it with a plan.
Exactly. This is exactly what, the things that we've been talking about, giving birth to this new idea and really knowing who we are, taking a look back at that, figuring out our purpose, and, just refining that vision, getting rid of those roadblocks.
You mean like getting a new camera that doesn't wipe out anything that we put in front of it?
I don't know what the deal is with that. So, anyway.
The colors.
But it shouldn't.
Anyway. Limited time. It's coming out February 22nd. There's a limited time offer. There's more information at crayonleadership.com/blueprint. Lisa does an excellent job in helping you. She brings people to tears. No, in a good way. In a good way, because it's a release of getting those remnants off of our driveway so that we can drive out and zoom to a greater life, a greater expectation, a greater realization of what we can be. And she does an excellent job. I watched her from afar. I've been through it with her. And this is just a course that you can do this on your own. You can go through this process on your own, but you do need somebody to be more effective, to think and help you stop in that moment between death and life.
Well, I think what's really cool about this
Yeah.
program is that it's not just me.
Yeah.
It is what it is because of the people who participate.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, I'll do teaching, I'll do some coaching, but it's that peer-to-peer interaction that you get as a group and
Yeah.
in private groups too. So even though we're virtual, I have a special way to make it the private group so you can talk to each other confidentially, and then we come back together as a group. So it's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And so give birth to those ideas that you have, those dreams, because when you have those dreams, they are fully resourced. You've been given the resource. You don't get the dream without having the resources. We just have to sometimes figure out how to get there. So
more information at crayonleadership.com. Sign up. Don't miss this opportunity, because if you do, then you got to wait for the next moment or the next moment after that to get going. And we don't want you to stay there. We want you to succeed, because life's moving along. But if you beat death at its own game of staying, of being stuck. I know it's hard. I'm going through it in my own life, and there's this medical work of trying to rebalance my meds and make me more energetic. Just trying to go through where I'm at now compared to 2 years ago. So, things change, and we need to continue to evolve and build a mindset for your success.
thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate those comments.
Andy and all the others that are out there that are going to see this on replay. Make sure if you put it on replay and you get to this point, hit replay and say, yes.
Thank you, Joe, for joining me.
Yeah.
And make my Fridays more interesting for sure.
Hey, 3 weeks in a row. Woo!
All right. You guys have a great weekend. I will see you again Monday morning, and I think I'll have some surprises next week.
Yeah.
I'm excited about next week. Super excited. So stay tuned.
All right.
Have a good one.
Bye.